So I'll just move on swiftly now to our next speaker, who is Sue Burton. And Sue is going to be talking about the surveying the waterway environment for pollution threats. Over to you, Sue. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much. Apologies if the sound isn't great here. We've been messing about with my microphone. So I'm here to tell you about SWEPT, which is Surveying the Waterway Environment for Pollution Threats. I'm also here to sort of wave the flag a bit for the marine environment. We do tend to get a bit drowned out by the focus on the land, we feel sometimes. This is very much a project which is connecting what happens on the land with what's happening in the sea. So I work on behalf of the relevant authorities group for Pembrokeshire Marine Special Area of Conservation. So I've been the SAC officer for the group, hosted by the Port of Milford Haven since 2000. So the SWEPT project was funded by a competitive grant through Natural Resources Wales, and it was very much aided by partners, the West Wales Rivers Trust, Pembrokeshire Coast Forum, and local education establishment Darwin. And it really was a team effort, and I must say here that we had fantastic support from the Freshwater Habitats Trust, who gave us permission to reuse their clean water for wildlife resources, which are absolutely fantastic. And through them, we also had great support from Earthwatch. After the NRW funding, we also got some further funding, which is brilliant. We were very proud to go down to the Houses of Parliament in London in July 2019, and there we won the National Park Protector Award from the Campaign for National Parks, and with the prize money from that, we were able to sort of really do a very thorough job on a SWEPT report, which not only summarised the findings from our sort of project, but it also hopefully acts as a good blueprint for others who want to replicate the methodology elsewhere. So you can see that report, that's available on the SAC website, on the currently on the latest news page. A bit of a health warning, the SAC website is really in need of an update, but there we go, that's where you can find the SWEPT reports, otherwise just come straight through to me. We also had funding from the Pembrokeshire Nature Partnership. They provided funding for a SWEPT sharing event, which we were going to do in March of this year, but that ended up being a virtual event. We had a webinar back in September, and there are much more detailed presentations available on YouTube. There's the link. And if you want further information, I recommend you sort of watch those presentations. The Pembrokeshire Nature Partnership and myself have always worked very closely. We very much believe in that important interface between land and sea, and I think it's really important. This project, more than anything, has really sort of shown that, really highlighted that what we do on the land is so important for what's happening in the marine environment. The objectives of SWEPT then, just working through. So ultimately, we wanted to better understand nutrient pollution within the Milford Haven waterway. That's our area of study. And we utilised our project team, and we had 46 pairs of volunteers. We were swamped with interest. It was fabulous. They were then undertaking walkover surveys along or adjacent to the foreshore, where they couldn't access the foreshore itself. They were walking on footpaths just adjacent to and looking then at all the freshwater inputs into that stretch. The actual stretches varied in length, but we basically chopped up the waterway into stretches to sort of suit people, and the local people who were involved very much sort of gave us their opinions on, what they felt they could do best. And some of not all of the freshwater inputs, but a handful of those freshwater inputs were tested for nitrate and phosphate levels using Kairitsu pack test kits. As well as the water quality, which was obviously the main focus for this project, we also got the volunteers to do recording all sorts of things. So all pollution concerns, non-native species, any wildlife of interest, otter spraints, things like that. So not only did that really make it more interesting for the participants, but it adds value, you know, getting people out there and eyes and ears on the ground. There's nothing that can beat that. And just the final point, really importantly, we wanted to raise awareness of the fact that nutrient pollution, especially nitrates from the land, really it does impact the marine environment. And just briefly, I'll tell you how that is happening. So there are various mechanisms. So what you can see here is a result of, so you have sedimentation effectively. So you have the soil coming off the land, obviously. We've all seen a brown river, and when that empties into the marine environment, it not only, the actual sediment, the particles, not only clog fish gills, but they also smother all the area. And because we have lots of sedentary filter feeders in the marine environment, it really affects their feeding and ability to grow and reproduce. So it has large impacts. We also have algal blooms, not so much in the marine environment in the Milford Haven waterway, but you sometimes see that as a sort of froth. Some people always think that's sewage pollution, but it can be a natural phenomenon. But algal blooms in fresh water, you sometimes see a sort of discoloration in the water, sort of a greenish colour. That wasn't such an issue for us. The main thing for us is the green algal mats. So this is the seaweed growth. So you can see in this picture here, this should be a brown mudflat, and it's very much covered in a thick felt like seaweed layer. And that seaweed, not only is it smothering obviously species on the shore, it's also impeding feeding birds. And when that mat breaks down through bacterial action, it uses up all the oxygen in the water, so effectively it suffocates all the marine life. It also has aesthetic problems for us humans. It can clog engines, clog fishing nets, and generally be a nuisance. So the area that I'm talking about here is the southwest of Pembrokeshire, of Wales, sorry, in Pembrokeshire, the Milford Haven waterway, and this is a map of the Pembrokeshire Marine Special Area of Conservation. It's an area which is actually twice the size of the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park, which obviously you must all have heard of, but maybe you've not all heard of the Pembrokeshire Marine Special Area of Conservation. That's marine conservation for you. We often feel a bit of a poor cousin in relation to the land. It's very much a rural agricultural area, so you can see from the aerial picture there. And the grey area on that map is the catchment for the Milford Haven waterway. It's absolutely massive, so it's no surprise really that we have water quality issues in that sort of enclosed waterway. So I wanted to talk about the actual monitoring that already happens. Obviously, Natural Resources Wales do statutory monitoring in the area of dissolved inorganic nitrogen, especially, which is of interest to this project. And we know from their monitoring that levels are far too high and the waterway is hypernutrified. With the Water Framework Directive regulations, currently sort of moderate, we need them to get to good by 2027. But it's clear that as well as failing the WFD targets, the habitats and species that are behind the designation of the Pembrokeshire Marine SAC are in unfavourable condition. At least 9 of the 15 species are in unfavourable condition at the moment, and they are all linked to water quality. Just to say that all the relevant authorities for the SAC have a legal duty to look after the SAC, so it's really important that this is addressed. So I've already said that the waterway was basically split up into sections for individual volunteer pairs to sort of go and survey over 4 months. We also had canoe trips, which were a fabulous way of reaching some very hard to reach areas. And they were run through the Pembrokeshire Coastal Forum and sea kayak guides, and very enjoyable they were too. So we looked at all the freshwater inputs into the waterway. These obviously, the freshwater inputs obviously vary according to rainfall. We had interestingly the highest rainfall coincides with the highest levels of nitrate and phosphate from the land. We didn't, so the different freshwater inputs then, we're not just talking streams here, we're talking urban drainage, we're talking little waterfalls coming off cliffs, dribbles from fields. There are many different freshwater inputs to the marine environment, and the cumulative effect is really what we're looking at in this project. So a handful of those were looked at for nitrate and phosphate levels, and this is where I'm going to get the interactive. So here is this is the tube, a very small tube. So this is our test tube. They come from Japan, Kairitsu pack test tubes. It's got a small amount of reagent in the bottom, and effectively I'm just taking out the little nylon. So I've got a little hole in the top of this tube here now, which I'm going to, here's some stream water that I've just got this morning from a local sort of stream running off an area of agriculture. So without trying to dribble on my keyboard, I'm going to literally just squeeze the air out of that, suck up some water into that tube until it's at least half to 3/4 full. Might take a few times. Ooh. And there we go. I'll just dry that off a bit. And you give it a good shake. Mix that up, and then I'm just going to set a timer for 3 minutes. And I shall show you that in a minute. So at the moment you can see that's quite clear. I've just set a timer for 3 minutes. And at 3 minutes we look at the colour change in that tube. So altogether we took 881 tests, which was an awful lot, but helped by our fabulous team of volunteers who were quite ingenious in how they were sampling. So, you know, sometimes, you know, you dangle a cup on a piece of string off a bridge and in order to get your sample. The advantage of the small tubes is that you can do it in situ, obviously, just straight up from a puddle or something. With the phosphate samples, we have found since that it's better to sort of keep those a bit warmer. So if you warm a sample in your hand, in a small bottle, first of all, then you then bring it up to temperature, because the temperature affects the time of the colour change. So I have already said that, as well as looking at those the water levels of phosphate and nitrate, we're also looking at other things. So we're recording marine litter, for example, fly tipping, recording any pollution incidents immediately through the NRW hotline. We had a couple of those and they were all followed up very swiftly, I'm pleased to say. And here is our sort of spread of results over the 4 months. So this was from November 2018 through to sort of February, March 2019. And basically this just shows that over the 4 months of sampling, this is nitrate, we had an awful lot of results. The darker the green and the larger the dot, the higher the level. So not unsurprisingly, we had a lot of nitrate pollution within the waterway, which we kind of were expecting, but we were really able to sort of fill in the gaps in the sort of statutory monitoring from NRW and give much greater local detail to the evidence base. And likewise with the phosphate, although we didn't get such high levels of phosphate, so really for us in this project it was the nitrate that we were sort of really, it was really the sort of focus of concern for us. As well as getting our own sort of test results, we also did some comparisons with NRW lab analysis. Now obviously NRW lab analysis of samples is much more accurate than these sort of small tubes, but we did find that if anything the tubes slightly under-recorded pollution levels. And certainly in terms of a large landscape, there's my timer, a large landscape project, this was a very, very effective way of immediately seeing a pollution change. So here we go. Here is, so you can see now that the tube has has changed colour. So I would probably put that, it's looking sort of maybe 2 to 5 up in the upper area here. So that's how you would record it. And you're recording a range. So if it looks exactly like one colour, you then put it in the category slightly above that. I think looking carefully at that, I think I'd probably put that in the 2 to 5 parts per million bracket. So basically anything over 1 is what we call polluted. And so, yeah, that is actually, I actually did that stream last month and it was 2 to 5. So we found in the survey that generally over the 4 months, there was no real statistical change over the 4 months. So that was interesting. We also had 2 undergraduate dissertations that were based on the results of the SWEP project, and they both achieved first. So that was fabulous to see. So obviously nutrient pollution, is a massive problem in the Milford Haven waterway, and predominantly from the cumulative effect of the diffuse sources of water runoff from agricultural fields. Now, when I first came to this project, I didn't, I just assumed that the spreading of slurry, for instance, was very much sort of regulated. And then I was quite sort of shocked to find out that actually it's only slurry storage that is really regulated. If there's an incident, there is obviously regulation in place. But in terms of diffuse pollution, it's just really a code of conduct. So you shouldn't spread too close to water sources. You should spread in the rain. But as we all know, when it comes to sort of, any, and I'm not just talking agriculture, anything, if there's a commercial gain to be had, if economics are really, really important, voluntary codes just don't work. So, everybody is waiting really. Welsh Government are working very hard on engaging with the agriculture industry and trying to see a way forward here. You might have heard of nitrate vulnerable zones. There's some concern that they won't solve the problem. They bring in additional regulation, which many people feel is really necessary. But there are concerns that on a practical level, they're not going to work. So really, we're a bit up in the air at the moment whilst we're waiting to see what's going to happen. Will the code of practice become statutory? We don't know. Will there be a maximum nitrogen limit per hectare? Don't really know. So I mean, Welsh Government are very much stuck between a rock and a hard place with the industry and the necessity to do something for the environment. That's very clear. And I know there's a lot happening, but we are frustrated at the sort of lack of progress, seemingly lack of progress. So it's very clear that delay and uncertainty are not just damaging to the agriculture industry. It's also very damaging to other industries, tourism, recreation, who really rely on a good quality land and seascape. So it's not just wildlife; it's other sectors that are suffering from this. So we really wanted to raise awareness. I think we did quite a good job of raising awareness of the fact that it's not just fresh water, it's not just all about the land, it really is about the marine environment as well. And we found actually that standing back and sort of almost taking a wide look and saying, look, all of this is having a problem on the marine environment collectively, it almost took away that kind of element of blame or something. It made it easier to have those conversations. So in summary then, okay, we had an award-winning citizen science water quality volunteer project, fabulous. We had over 150 volunteers spending 1,927 volunteer hours on collecting 881 nitrate and phosphate tests. Those instant results were really valuable and useful to supplement statutory monitoring. And the use of the packet test kits, we felt, really gave an effective contribution to hopefully leading towards better environmental understanding and management. The uptake was fantastic, and undoubtedly helped the project not only meet but surpass its objectives. And for those who are interested in sort of the money side of things, the grant and the money we've had since and everything, total cash costs come to sort of just over £17,000, which I think shows that, you know, projects like this don't have to cost the earth. As long as you're involving the right people and you've got really good local buy-in, I think an awful lot can be achieved. So finally then, we can say that those water sample and walking survey results are being used to better understand the effects of land runoff upon the marine environment. They are currently informing NRW's evidence review of the status of the Milford Haven waterway, and hopefully they will lead to environmental improvements. We obviously have a very bad problem with nitrate pollution within the Milford Haven waterway, and this needs to be urgently addressed. 20 years we've known this to be an issue, and we're still having the conversations around what we can do about it and how we can work through. The environment is suffering, other sectors are suffering, something needs to happen. So please look at that SWEP report. If you want further information, for more detailed presentations, go to that YouTube link. And please contact me if you've got any queries or want some practical advice on setting SWEP up in other areas, and please feel free to get in touch. Okay, thank you very much.